Hi Brad, Karen here. I've been looking at this little painting of yours for a while. I wanted to show you a few things about it. You did a wonderful job with getting the proportions right and getting the buildings right. You know, that's something a lot of people have trouble with in terms of perspective and things like that, but you just intuitively get that. So that's a great start. And I kept trying to figure out what it was about this image that was making the buildings seem as if they weren't integrated into the scene, kind of like almost like they were set apart or setting away from the scene. So I just decided to play around a little bit and figure out what was wrong. And you know what I always start with is the values. But your values are really right on. You can see in your painting and in the reference photo, the only areas that were a little off were here in this area with the island, I'll call it, and then compared to here, and that has to do with the sunlight. This was a kind of an overcast day, obviously, and there isn't a lot of specific shadow and light, which is really hard to paint. It's one of the things, just as a side note, that I tend to really try to avoid when I'm painting from a photo because it makes all your forms look very flat and it's hard to get a sense of roundness if there's no shadow and light to make it more interesting. Everything just kind of tends to be a little flat. But um, that being said, this is a really cool structure, this castle kind of situation, and so it's certainly worth giving it a try, and I can see why you wanted to paint it. So getting back to the values idea, it's really just this area here that got too dark, and there's some differences just in the facades of these buildings where yours, these are captures of the colors here. So you can see how yours got a little darker than here, which makes it even feel like less of a feeling of light. So, but it's not in your values. Your values are great. Even in your trees and whatnot, there's areas where it got a little bit lighter, but I think what's kind of confusing me about the painting isn't about the values at all. It's more about color. So that's why I wanted to do this little exercise and show you some of the comparisons. I've just sampled areas in your painting and areas in the reference photo and then compared them. And I think what you'll see two things overall. One is this bright blue that you're using in the windows. These are the window colors, and the windows do vary as they go back. Some are lighter and some are darker, but they're a very neutral kind of gray color you can see here versus the very blue color that that we're seeing in yours. And that I think it's that blue color that's really standing out to me, and it's making all the attention go kind of to those windows when they're kind of secondary and not necessarily something that you want to be that obvious. And they also are really consistent in color throughout. And there's that blue up here in the roof area too. So overall, your your colors are tending to be cooler and versus the colors in the reference photo. If you look down here, you get a sense of kind of the warmth of this scene. And I think that there's two things that really make that stand out. One is the roof, this and the windows, these cool bluer colors, though the roof color is really similar though, except that there's many colors in this roof. It gets a little warmer here, cooler here, lighter, dark, so there's a lot of variation, and you've added some of that blue into the roof, so the roof is reading really blue as well. Um, and then you get into the buildings, and here's the colors that are used in your buildings here versus the colors in the image. And like I mentioned before, you can tell that these are just a little darker, so we're kind of losing that sense of the sunlight a little bit. And this one here. Um, and then the area, I think that between this blue and the other area that's kind of standing out is your greens. For example, I sampled these trees back here that look green, and this is actually the color in there. It's a very neutralized green versus the green you're using here, which is very bright. So it's these are actually the tree colors when they're sampled out, these kind of more neutralized colors versus the more vivid chromatic colors that you're using. And so that's just bringing this part out and making it not seem like it's settling into the distance, and seeming the colors seem a little unnatural. And then the other area, again, going back to that coolness in yours versus the warmth, here's the grass, here's your grass, and here's the grass down below. And you can see that this grass is warmer in color, it has more yellow in it, and it's lighter. So it's reading a little more natural. This kind of a color here that's very kind of Kelly green almost is not reading as natural, and it's not showing us that the light is hitting it, because it's getting, whatever light there is coming directly down and hitting this strip of grass and making it lighter. Same with this area, because it's in the open area, it's getting light directly from the sky, and you can see the big difference there in terms of value and color. So overall, I would just say the main issue is the blue there and the overall coolness. Your road is cooler. This area is much cooler, bluer than this area. So there's kind of less of a feeling of integration between the background and the colors in the houses, and so they're kind of standing out. Specifically to the chimney, you have your chimney really light and very bluish gray here versus the chimneys here, which settle back into the background a little bit more because they're closer in color and value to the background. So I was just playing around with this and just used Photoshop to kind of throw some washes in there in different areas to kind of show you the differences that might make. You can see here how much I've warmed up the roof line. There's variations in colors, but they're in the ranges of browns, gray browns instead of these blue grays. The same with the windows. I've made them more sort of warm and neutral colored versus the blue. And I think you can see, I mean, this is super rough, but I just wanted you to kind of see that helps it settle in a little bit more and feel like it's part of the scene, and you get a kind of a warmth going on there. The buildings I just lightened up a little bit. This building specifically, I lightened this area and this area, and then brought warmer, lighter colors into the roadway and warmer colors into this field here, or this wall here, and then brought that value back in the island so that you can see that it's directly getting whatever light there is, and brought this yellower and lighter. And then of course back in the foliage back here in the trees, all I did really was neutralize those colors a little bit more. So taking this green, which is very bright, and neutralizing it a little bit more, giving it a little more of a natural look. And then I've actually taken the colors that I used in the roof and put some of those colors up here into the foliage. There's always going to be sticks and twigs and things like that in foliage. So putting in some shades of brown is always a good idea to make it look a little more natural. As far as the chimneys, I've just brought the values closer together, so darkened them up a little bit, and warm them up a little bit so that some of these colors are actually back in here, and then and vice versa. You can see some of these colors here. You want to be careful with your shadows too, especially shadows that are facing the ground. In other words, the ground is getting light and it's bouncing back up under the eaves. You're always going to have a warmth in there. So I've just made this more of a warm brownish tone instead of the sort of a cooler tones that you had going on there. Same with the little fence, just warmed them up into a warm brown instead of that cool blue gray, and have more of a warm gray in there. It's a subtle difference. It's really a slight difference in the you can tell in the colors. For example, these are the road colors here, and you see how this is just a little warmer than yours, how all these shades are just to the warmer side versus the really cool side. And they're still all very subtle shades of gray. Shades of gray are really our friend when it comes to painting. Neutrals, we call them. So, and getting a neutral is just about adding a little bit of the complementary color in. So when you get that green straight from the tube, add in a little bit of red, and just a tiny bit, and that will neutralize it a little bit. I also really like to add quinacridone gold, which is one of my favorite colors, and it adds a warmth and a goldish tone to your foliage, which just comes across as more natural than these sort of bluish green colors that we tend to want to paint things because trees are green, but again, looking at those colors really that are back there, they're just not that they're just warmer and a little more neutral, and it's those subtle changes that take you that will help you integrate the scene. So values were great, drawing is great. This whole critique is really just about color and those color differences, and value too in these terms. But that's all I wanted to show you today. Is remember, neutrals are really helpful and they integrate areas, and warm tones versus cool tones. You can have a really similar value. You can have your value right on actually, but you need to watch for, now does this need to be a warm tone or a cool tone? And warm tones like that are in this reference photo are going to give us more of an inviting feel and more of a in certain situations. There's always places where cool tones are what you want. But anyway, I'm rambling on here, and I hope that is helpful, and I'll go ahead and put these photos out there too so that you can look at them further if you want to. Okay, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you later.